In 1971, Stanford professor Philip Zimbardo conducted an experiment that would define our understanding of evil for half a century. The story was simple. Ordinary students were cast as either guards or prisoners in a simulated jail set up in a university basement. Within just a few days, the guards reportedly became sadistic, the prisoners suffered psychological breakdowns, and the entire study had to be shut down after only 6 days. For 50 years, this has been presented as the ultimate proof that the system, not our individual character, is what controls our behavior. There's just one massive problem with this story: almost none of it was true. For decades, the legend went something like this. 24 mentally healthy students were randomly divided into 2 groups. The guards were given uniforms and batons, while the prisoners were unexpectedly arrested at their homes by real police officers. We were told that the guards spontaneously devolved into tyrants, denying prisoners basic rights like using the bathroom and throwing them into solitary confinement for minor infractions. The prisoners, in turn, supposedly suffered genuine mental collapses, succumbing to the overwhelming pressure of their roles. Zimbardo famously called this the Lucifer effect, the idea that good people can turn evil when placed in a bad situation. It became a cornerstone of social psychology, appearing in every introductory textbook. It was used to explain real-world military scandals like Abu Ghraib and influenced criminal justice policy. For decades, it was the unquestioned gospel of human nature. We are all just one uniform away from becoming monsters. But then, the archives were opened. In 2017, French academic Thibault Letexier gained access to Philip Zimbardo's original, unpublished files from the experiment. What he found was damning. The guards' cruelty wasn't spontaneous at all, it was coached. Newly released audio recordings reveal Zimbardo and his team explicitly telling the guards how to behave. They were instructed to create fear, to make the prisoners feel a sense of disorientation and powerlessness. The most infamous guard, nicknamed John Wayne for his harsh persona, later admitted he was simply acting. He was playing a character from a movie, giving the researchers what he thought they wanted to see. And what about the prisoners' dramatic mental breakdowns, also staged? Douglas Corpy, the prisoner whose screaming fit became the most iconic moment of the experiment, later confessed he was faking it. Why? Because he needed to study for his upcoming exams, and it was the only way he thought he could get out. The experiment wasn't a controlled scientific study, it was a piece of theater. Zimbardo cherry-picked his data, ignoring the guards who were kind or refused to be cruel. He also actively prevented participants from leaving, which is a massive ethical violation that invalidates any scientific claim. This wasn't an observation of human nature. It was a staged performance presented to the world as objective reality. So, why did we believe this lie for 50 years? The simple answer is that a good story spreads much faster than boring data. Zimbardo wasn't just a researcher, he was a master promoter. He took his dramatic, ready-for-Hollywood narrative to talk shows, TED stages, and documentary crews, creating a legend that was too compelling to question. The study also had what you might call institutional armor. It came from Stanford, one of the most prestigious universities in the world. This prestige led other academics and journalists to cite it for decades without ever going back to check the original files. By the time the truth started to emerge, the experiment was already embedded in thousands of textbooks and had become a cultural touchstone. Correcting the record meant admitting that the entire academic system had failed its most basic duty, to properly peer review its own findings. The consequences of this fabrication were very real. By popularizing the idea that bad situations are to blame for evil acts rather than the individuals who commit them, the Stanford Prison Experiment provided a convenient scientific shield for people involved in real-world abuses. During the trials for the Abu Ghraib prison scandal, Zimbardo himself served as an expert witness, using his flawed study to argue that the soldiers weren't fully responsible for their choices. This situational excuse dangerously ignores human agency and personal responsibility. It also created a powerful cultural trope, the idea that power automatically and inevitably corrupts, which is a convenient lie that lets individuals off the hook for their own moral failures. We bought the story because it felt true. It confirmed a cynical bias many of us have about power and authority. But in science, if an experiment can't be replicated, its findings aren't a fact. Because the original results were manipulated from the start, the Stanford Prison Experiment has always failed the test of time. It took a global reproducibility crisis in psychology, a moment where scientists began retesting famous old studies for anyone to finally look under the hood of Zimbardo's basement experiment. When they did, they found a credibility gap that was 50 years wide, separating what was reported from what actually happened. Ultimately, the story of the Stanford Prison Experiment is a powerful case study in how institutional inertia protects a good story, even when it's false. Even today, with all the evidence debunking it, the experiment is still taught in many classrooms. Because the simple, dramatic legend is considered more useful for teaching than the messy, inconvenient truth. It proves that in our world, prestige and a good presentation can often matter more than scientific rigor. The lie was so powerful because, on some level, it was a lie we wanted to believe. So, what's the real lesson here? It's not about how prisons change people. The true takeaway is about how easily all of us can be manipulated by the appearance of authority and scientific branding. The Stanford Prison Experiment was a fraud, but its 50-year reign as a pillar of psychology reveals a much deeper truth about our own vulnerability to compelling narratives, especially when they come from a trusted source. And that lesson: to always question the source, to look past the prestige, and to challenge the obvious story is the only part of Zimbardo's legacy that actually stands up to scrutiny. Thank you for watching. If you found this interesting, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world.